Welcome back to the Scottish Indie Music Podcast with Gareth Perrie and Finlay Macdonald. In episode 2, we discussed the recent broadcast of the Teenage Superstars documentary, which focuses on the influential music scene that emerged in and around Glasgow during the 1980s. We each performed one of our own musical guilty pleasures and discussed, amongst other things, lookalikes, Chaz and Dave, and potential career changes.
Oh Mandy, you came and you gave without taking.
We should maybe say thanks to everybody for watching the first episode and listening to the first episode, and the feedback's been really nice.
Very positive feedback and some tips for professionalism as well. One of which was try and tell people what you're talking about sometimes, like if you're talking about venues and things like that.
Yeah, and who certain people are that they've never met in their lives.
Exactly. Well, I believe professional broadcasters say, imagine you're talking to your mother or something like that. I don't know. I didn't get into this to be professional though. You know, I don't have to worry about that.
Nah, I think we just keep it completely self-indulgent, and if people don't know what we're talking about, then it's their problem.
I mean, have you heard of Wikipedia? If you're that bothered, go and look it up.
I think the big news of this week in the world of Scottish indie music was the Teenage Superstars documentary that was on Sky Arts, and I believe it's still available on Sky Go and Now TV. And it features...
That wasn't why I wanted to talk
you.
about it. I'm sort of like, I'm in this very short Benny Hill type snippet of a BMX Bandits video. Kylie's got a crush on us, but it's mainly about the wave or the explosion of independent music that happened in and around Glasgow in the mid-80s. Included the Pastels, the Jesus and Mary Chain, the whole creation story, BMX Bandits, Teenage Fan Club, the Vaselines, all the sort of biggest, most enduring and, you know, I suppose important bands that came out of that era. It was brilliant. It's a great documentary. I thought it was great. What did you think?
Yeah, I loved it. It was really good. I remember there was a documentary on BBC, and I can't remember the name of it, but it almost had the same sort of feeling to it. But that episode was only about half an hour, so it was nice to have. I think it was about an hour and 47. So it was really nice to get a bit more depth with all the stories and just all the faces as well. Yeah, some of the more obscure band members that it was really nice just to see them getting interviewed as well.
Like the drummer of Primal Scream and things like that, and the early members. But then John Martin, of course, who I know, a lot of people I know, he's written books and things like that. He was great because he speaks, he's just got a great way of delivery, and he was the famous tambourine player for Primal Scream in their early records, you know. He was one of the stars of the show, I would have thought, you know, great. I remember them from sort of around that time, 86, Velocity Girl and things, when that was on the C86 compilation, which is a sort of totem for that whole era, and it gets the movement gets called C86 quite a lot. It was an NME compilation that came out. Yeah. I was a wee bit too young for it as well, to be honest, though. I was only 16 when that was on. I couldn't go to like indie nightclubs when I was 16. But the year after that, I kind of caught the end of it, and I saw the BMX Bandits. That was my sort of punk rock moment, my first sort of indie gig where I could watch people on stage who seemed to be a bit like me, and they were only just a few feet away. And it was like, wow, I can do that. Unlike, perhaps the previous gigs that I'd seen in the Glasgow Apollo, which were huge, and that was a different kind of thing, Yeah, one of the other things I wanted to say about that C86 thing was like, the bands at the time, it doesn't maybe come across how good a lot of them were live. A lot of them were really exciting and sounded great live. Of course, the records were very badly produced because they were just produced by people who didn't really know what they were doing. Mm-hmm. The sound of the records, it's quite hard to listen to a lot of them now, to be honest. But live, there's an explosion of live bands all over the place. And they were great. A lot of these bands, BMX Bandits, for example, bands like Felt, although I didn't see them, other people I know, they were great live as well, and the June Brides and people like that as well. Anyway, I thought the film captured the spirit of the age, as Hawkwind might put it.
Yeah. See, it's really interesting hearing your perspective of it, obviously, just being that sort of age around that time. It's slightly envious in a way because there wasn't really anything like that when I was that age that I was really into.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite a good thing. You know, I think things like Franz Ferdinand and things like that all starting to come out, and bands around that kind of time.
I mean, there was a lot of cool bands around. It wasn't that there wasn't anything interesting happening, but I think you were spoiled definitely around that time.
Yeah, I mean, at that era became known as landfill indie. It was almost like there was more indie bands around 2006. It hasn't gone down in history the way that C86 did.
Did you know at the time that it was pretty special?
Yeah, there was a definite buzz. It was exciting, even though I kind of was a bit young to go to a lot of the gigs. I caught the end of them. But reading the NME every week and listening to Janice Long and John Peel sessions every week as well, you were tuned into it, and it was a real buzz. There was so many bands. It definitely felt like an exciting time, you know. And there was that DIY element to it all as well.
No, that's cool. And just with it being here as well, because I mean, there was stuff around that age that was made for me as a 17, 18-year-old. I often wonder with kids just now, because they've got access to all the music in the world. And I wonder if they miss that collective thing.
Yeah, we don't rely on the music papers and radio shows. You can find out about bands on Spotify. You don't know if anybody else likes them. Whereas before it was like, you know, everybody read the NME, so we all knew what we were all liking or hearing about and stuff.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like, I don't think it's such a bad thing to have that access, but at the same time, yeah, it did feel special when it was for you and it was your age group. You and your pals were all excited about this same thing.
Yeah, that's something that has been lost to a certain extent, I think. Maybe it'll kind of come back, you know, because you get things like Tim's Twitter listening party where people are consciously making that happen, aren't they? And the fact that vinyls come back, people are looking back and think, oh, what are the good things about the past we can bring back, you know, we can still do. So maybe it will come back, you know. I think young people are always good at surprising us old folk. So, you know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And they're still into cool stuff. I mean, there's a couple of people I teach as well that are just into the most crazy music that I would never have found if it wasn't for them.
Oh, yeah. And yeah. Well, I get that from my kids. I'm lucky I've got 2 teenage kids, and I've had a lot of music shown to me by them, and I've shared it with other people as well. It's great, you know.
Can you remember any names of tunes that they've introduced to you?
They've introduced a big one recently. It was Quero Quero Bonito, who Eric got me into. Yeah. And then Ray, she got into it as well. And they're kind of London-based band with a half London singer. It's really interesting. It's half two cultures, you know, in the one band. And they're kind of electro pop, and they've got great melodies, and they're amazing live as well.
Are they the ones that have a song about a flamingo?
Yeah, they've got one called Flamingo, and they've got the Trampoline, and so that, and then sort of hip hop things that I suppose are quite popular. I wouldn't have known about things like Kendrick Lamar if it wasn't for my kids, to be honest. I like some things like that.
The one that jumped out at me was a girl called Clairo, and it's a song called Pretty Girl. I think she's quite popular now, actually, but the video of it's just one of those ones where she's like, it's really naively edited and actually really naively written, because it's almost like she stumbled across a shape of a chord on her little keyboard. It sounds like a little Casio to me. Right. She's got the Casio drum beat in the background, and she's just moving this chord shape up and down and finding where it works. Yeah. And it's the same shape the whole time. And she was singing a song about a boy that had split up with her because she wouldn't wear a dress. And it was it's just so like a perfect song for a teenage girl like that.
Absolutely. It's interesting that's a lot of what was good about the C86 thing and other movements since then, but it's that idea of not being able to play, but that not being a hindrance. Like, I've heard bands who were great in that time and who they're now writing new songs, but they've since learned to play, and it's not as good because their ability on the instrument is interfering with the creativity. I've heard that happen a lot.
I've got a pet wants to say hello.
Hello. Hello. I promised they would be pets.
I promised they would be kept on this episode, so there we go. Done it.
It's really interesting to hear your perspective on it, because I just get the impression from you that you sort of still see yourself as a bit of an outsider in that scene.
Yeah. It could just be me. I may have maybe a confidence thing. I've got a slightly outsider complex or whatever. Or maybe it was that I was just a wee bit young. I know Francis Macdonald says that as well. He often says that he felt like he was like a Johnny come lately, I think was the term he used. But I see him as completely part of it, because he was in a number of these bands, before I even started going to see them. So
it must be a Macdonald thing.
It might be a Macdonald thing. That's possible.
The Macdonald inferiority complex.
That's why I changed my name to Lindsay Moss. I think you've actually nailed it there, Gareth.
Yeah, you became very, very big-headed when you did that.
That was it. The real me came out. Thought very good, very well made, worth a watch for anybody that wants to watch it. Let's be professional. Said it was on Now TV, didn't you? You can get it on Now TV.
So I think we decided last time that the guilty pleasure thing was quite good. You did drop the bombshell on me a couple of days ago that you had actually prepared a performance of your guilty pleasure this week.
Wow, and now I can't make it look as if it was completely unprepared and impromptu, but yes.
And I have to make it look like I've not been scrabbling around with a guitar for the last 2 days trying to get up to the standards you're about to set as well.
Well, we'll see.
Not that I'm trying to put any pressure on you or anything.
Well, you're doing a good job, so... well, I was just going to start with the usual caveat that, of course, there is no such thing as a guilty pleasure. My guilty pleasure this week is something that I've been obsessed with since Friday morning. I was cheering myself up by playing Ding a Dong, I think it's called, or Ding Dong, by Teachin. It was the winning entry for Eurovision Song Contest in 1975 from the Netherlands. And it's just brilliant. I think it might be my all-time favourite Eurovision song. If you've never heard Ding a Dong by Teachin, you should. Cheer yourself up with it. Get it on, especially over lockdown and things. Have a wee disco in your kitchen. But I'll just play it for you right now so that you know what I'm talking about.
When you're feeling alright, everything is uptight. Try to sing a song that goes ding, ding a dong. There will be no sorrow. Wait until tomorrow when you walk around with your ding, ding dong, ding a dong every hour. When you pick a flower, even when your lover is gone, 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 ding a dong into it. Maybe it's a wicked, even when your lover is gone, 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 ding, ding, ding dong.
I meant to turn the camera around, but I forgot. It doesn't matter.
You know the Eurovision film with Will Ferrell that was out last year? Is that the song that they kept singing in that? Or kept getting heckled to sing?
No, but they got the idea for the name of that song. It's called Ya Ya Ding Dong. Le Ya Ya Ding Dong! And the Eurovision Song Contest film is absolutely fantastic, isn't it, with Will Ferrell?
The one you did then, I'm sure I've seen Edwin Collins singing that, and it might have been on Eurotrash.
Yeah, I think he did actually. I completely forgot that he did it, but yes, he did, yeah.
Right, so is it my turn?
Yep.
And this is my new 3/4 sized guitar, the cheapest guitar I could find, nylon string acoustic, because I thought it would be nice to have one I could just colour in and shove in the back of the car whenever I needed it. So
yeah,
here is its debut performance. This is one of these songs that I put on to make me go a bit faster when I'm a bit sluggish in the morning and I need to get moving. So... His name was Rico, he wore a diamond, he was escorted to his chair, he saw Lola standing there, and when she finished, he called her over. But Rico went a bit too far. Tony sailed across the bar, and then the punches flew, and chairs were smashed in two. There was blood and a single gunshot, but just who shot who at the Copacabana, the hottest spot north of Havana, at the Copacabana. Music and passion were always the fashion at the Copa. She lost her love.
Woo! Amazing. What a great choice and a great version, I have to say. Lovely version. Because see, when you do a kind of quiet version of a song like that, it really brings out the lyrics. I didn't remember the lyrics about getting smashed in the chairs and all that. It's great. I love that. I love it so much.
You know, you just put on a song and then Spotify just goes off on a tangent. I'm sure, like, obviously know the song, but it just reminded me of it.
Yeah.
And in that moment made me feel brilliant. So I've been listening to it occasionally ever since.
That's another one to put on your playlist, isn't it? If you want to cheer yourself up with a boogie round the kitchen during lockdown. So get Ding a Dong on, get Copacabana, and just set the Spotify radio to these two songs, man. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, your algorithm will never be the same again, that's for sure.
I know, it'll be good though. It'll be good.
There was a chap we used to play gigs with that really looked like Barry Manilow. He knows who he is.
You know the film Breakfast Club, where they says to the teacher, "Does Barry Manilow know you raided his wardrobe?" Some kid's going to say that to me one day.
Aye. Who would your lookalike be?
When I was young in Twecker, I used to get called John Travolta sometimes. When I was about 16.
Right, okay.
Some of the youngsters in Twecker had a limited range of references. I thought, my haircut was more like Elvis or Morrissey, you know, that's what I was going for. But John Travolta was what they saw. And perhaps they were right. I think I know your one. It's quite famous.
The best one I've ever had was Bill Nelson from Bebop Deluxe. Like that.
That's the one.
I could see it. Like, you know, when people say you look like somebody and you just don't see it at all. And I was like, wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's quite frightening. If you put your two faces together, you almost wouldn't know who was who.
Yeah, I guess it's his teeth. And he had one of those hairstyles, this sort of like wiry men's hair bob, like Dave Davis kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe I should try and grow one of them.
You know, it's a good reference. It's a good look.
But the eyes were just like, it was just the same. And even the way he looked, it was like, whenever I've seen videos of myself, it's like the same. It was really weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're great. Bebop Deluxe is good. From what I've heard, anyway. Anyway, we've moved on to Doppelgangers, and that was not part of the schedule. We've done the Guilty Pleasures. So what's next? Are we going to go on to questions?
Yeah, how many do you want to do? Do you want to do a couple? Or will we see how one goes, and then if we've got time, we can do another one?
Let's just see how it goes. I've got 4. I've got some left over from last time. So I'll ask you first, yeah?
Yeah. Let's go for number 3.
Number 3. What have you been up to musically?
In the past couple of weeks, I've been working on an album for my band, The Smart Set, and initially said I wasn't going to do an album ever because it was just too much work, but then changed my mind. So I've been working on that, and in terms of progress, probably about maybe 2/3 of the way through it. Wow. So it's taken a wee bit longer than I thought it would. So it's probably going to end up being a lot of me on there, and maybe a couple of guest singers, a lot of drum loops, lots of my Yamaha that's sitting behind me, lots of triple track vocals.
Oh yeah, can't beat a bit of triple track vocals. Have you got any song topics you want to share with the ladies and gentlemen?
Well, one of them's a story about learning to dance in Paris, which was initially I learned to dab in Paris because that's the first time I ever saw people doing that thing. Yeah, yeah. So it sort of creates a story about learning to dance on the River Seine. And then another one in the same song about learning to walk in Amsterdam, which you can draw your own conclusions from. I'd say in terms of style, it's slightly hip-hoppy, I think, and that maybe just comes from the drum loops. It's usually like a drum loop and a bass line that, obviously, apart from the initial melody, and I quite enjoy that.
I think the style for you just emerges from all the sounds and things that you've put into it, and because you put a lot of thought into lyrics as well as melody, you become, I suppose, like a singer-songwriter, and that in itself is kind of like a style. Everybody likes a genre, doesn't it? It makes it easier to kind of sell to people who don't. That's what the whole thing. It'd be quite fun to come up with a new genre, I think.
I don't think I've ever put anything other than pop. I think that's it. Yeah.
You just put another word in front of that, and then that's you got a genre, you know.
Yeah.
Like I'm just looking at a random legend pop.
What about you, Finlay?
Funny you should ask. Well, yeah, I'm working away on the Workspace album. It's becoming an album now, so I'm working my way through that, and I've come up with the basis for a full album. And it'll take me a while to finish it, but I'm enjoying that. But I've just recently, more specifically, been asked by Dave Barker, who is the head honcho at Glass Modern Records, who are putting out my music, Workspace Records. And I've been asked to do a cover version song of an old Glass Records, because he originally started out with a label called Glass Records in the 80s, during all that era that we were talking about earlier on. And he's looking to do a kind of 40th anniversary compilation album of current artists doing covers of artists that were on it back then. So that's what he'd asked me to do. And he suggested a song that nobody else is doing, and it's by a band I had never heard of, I'll be absolutely honest. They're called The Perfect Disaster, and the song's called Bluebell, and it's I've really got into it. It's great. And it was his idea because he thought the Workspace sound would work well on it, and I think he's right, and I'm enjoying doing that right now. So I'm kind of halfway through completing that track. It's got a kind of Velvet Underground noi kind of motoric beat.
Good stuff. I look forward to hearing more Workspace songs as well, because I've enjoyed everything I've heard so far, including that song at the start of this episode.
Yep. The current single, that's the version that you hear at the start. The actual single got words on it.
So I've got 5 here, so you can pick 1 to 5.
1 to 5. Okay, I'm going to go for number 1.
Number 1 is, have you got any hidden talents?
Ooh.
So that could be in music. That could be something that you've never told me that you play, or something you've done, or it could be something completely unconnected to music altogether.
Well, I suppose, I play quite a lot of instruments, not particularly well, so that are not obvious. I suppose DIY and house development, I like that. That's a talent that I've got. I'm not too bad at. I'm not like a carpenter or something, I've laminated a worktop together out of old scaffold boards. We've got a whole bunch of recycled scaffold board, and I made worktops out of that by using biscuit joints and a router to kind of get a really smooth join and, make it look like one big worktop. So that's like almost getting into, well, definitely joiner skills, sort of almost carpenter skills, but not quite. I'm not a carpenter, I couldn't do a dovetail joint. I maybe could if I worked at it really, really hard. I did the shelves you see behind you. I built all of them, carved them out of one piece, one tree, with a chisel.
Your bare fists.
Yeah, took ages.
I think everybody that's watching this will probably have been admiring those shelves. I find myself just getting lost in them now and again.
I put the camera on HG, by the way, guys, if you want to sort of zoom in and look at they're the good books. There's one shelf there that's got my music books on it. The rest are all my wife's. And all these ones up here are all my wife's. She's the reader, she's the bookworm, she's the academic. Yeah. Well, there's the studio. I built the studio as well down at the bottom of the garden. Analog mountain, which is another thing that right now in lockdown it's kind of meaningless, but that's something that I will be inviting musicians in to record in once this bloody war is over.
Including myself?
Indeed. In fact, you're already booked. You were one of the first to book it. We just haven't been able to do it.
I will get in with another band that I can plug at some point in the future.
Which is really exciting. But I take it you're not telling anybody the name of them right now, no?
We can hold off on that one for a bit. I just can't be bothered putting more graphics on the screen. 2 pages left.
Yeah, cut down the workload on that. You start to think of the editing, don't you? You go, right, I better say something cool so that I don't have to edit too much. So what's your hidden talent then? Go. So you mean you didn't do it in a calculated way the way I did?
No, you should hear all the things I'm great at, by the way. I tell you. What am I good at, right? I'm really good at Football Manager, the computer game.
You should be a football manager.
Well, I've applied for the Stirling Albion job twice and I've been turned down twice. So
For real, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I've got the rejection letters somewhere. I'll look them out.
Gareth, you know, that's and if it was anybody else, I maybe wouldn't believe them, but you're the kind of guy you're a go-getting kind of guy that would do that.
Yeah, it's the only job I want. I'm not interested in any other job. It's the Stirling Albion job I'm after.
I have a question about football because I don't know anything about football. This might be naive, right? But see if you support a team who have been doing really, really well for like about 12 years or something and winning everything for 12 years, and then they suddenly stop winning things. Yeah. Surely that must be quite refreshing because you've now got a feeling where, you don't know if you're going to win. And I mean, surely it must get boring if you just know you're going to win every single week for 12 years. I mean,
it was only 9.
Was it 9? I don't know. You know, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're at real risk of alienating 90% of our listenership here.
Yeah, but you know, I'm not saying any names. It could apply to, you know, either of the major teams in Scotland. You know,
what we need is Gareth Perrie in charge of Stirling Albion, and just to upset the apple cart a little bit.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, if they keep turning me down, the relationship might sour a little bit. So, what I did was I sent them an application. I kind of spelled out what I was going to do, and then sent a screenshot of the time I won the European Cup with them, and said, "This is what I can do. Give me 8 years, and this is where you'll be."
That's what you used as evidence. How on earth did that not work? I'm baffled. Yeah. So, am I asking you? No, you're asking me. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll do one more.
Yeah, let's do one more.
Cool. I'll go number 1 this time as well.
Number 1. Oh, good. I'm so glad you picked number 1. Why?
You got a good answer for it.
Why do you like Chaz and Dave?
Yeah. Why do I like Chaz and Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah. I should point out I'm not like a big super Chaz and Dave fan.
But you asked me to go to a concert with you, and you asked at least one other person I know to go to a concert with you, so you must quite like them.
The reason I asked you is because in the back of my mind I thought we'd had a conversation at one point about them where you said you'd liked them, so it came as a shock to me when you turned down my ticket. Now it was actually
I do like them, but it's just I probably didn't like them as much as you thought. I liked them when we were discussing it.
Yeah, I'm almost like we're in guilty pleasure territory again here.
It's a wee bit like that, yeah. But this question was floating about from the last time, actually, before the whole guilty pleasure thing. Yeah. I thought I'd keep it on because I'd like to just know.
Yeah, one of my favourite pieces of musical trivia is the fact that Chaz and Dave both played on Eminem's first breakthrough single, "My Name Is," because they'd played on the Labi Siffre track that it samples.
Ah, right, yeah.
So, I mean, that was huge when it came out, wasn't it, that Eminem song?
Oh, yeah.
And little did all these guys know that they were bopping along to Chaz and Dave.
Brilliant. But they've got lots of great songs. We all know Rabbit, don't we? And we know, like, Snooker Loopy and all that stuff.
Ain't No Pleasing You is absolutely brilliant as well, though. That's a good one. That's really cool.
That stands up amongst any singer-songwriter.
I had a bit of a thing when I was maybe a teenager. I got into that music hall sound a little bit. I quite liked it. I don't know if it was just maybe starting to just looking for stuff that had that style on the piano to try and learn something different. I don't know. I suppose they're the kind of modern keeping the flag flying, aren't they? They were the last ones to really go for that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was fashionable when the Beatles and the Kinks and lots of people like that did it. They came up with this idea of doing it in their own accent, didn't they? Which was Cockney.
I wonder a little bit if Chas and Dave were maybe slight victims of the time that they were releasing these songs, where that production was sort of the way it was in pop music at the time. Mm-hmm. It maybe didn't quite suit that style of music. So maybe if they'd been 20 years earlier, it might have sounded a little bit more authentic.
I know what you mean, yeah. Just because it was maybe the early 80s and things like that.
It's maybe just the content, like the subject matter. I like that one, the Sideboard song.
I don't know that one. But it's a good title, so I'm going to look it up. I like Sideboards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've discussed earlier on.
Yeah. Do you know that same gig you're talking about? I don't know who the other person I offered the ticket to was. I was maybe just asking everybody because nobody wanted to go. I remember going to a gig with my girlfriend because she was a McFly fan when she was younger. Mm-hmm. And so we went to see them. That was her nostalgia kind of gig. And then about 6 months later, I said, right, I went to McFly. You have to come to Chas and Dave. And she just point blank refused. Like that was the line drawn.
Whoa. I think you had the rug caught from under your feet there.
Exactly.
I thought that was an absolute fair enough.
I know. I had to stand through 2 of McFly albums in their entirety.
That's a sore one. Did you end up going yourself then?
No, I did find somebody went with me, my pal. He's not really into that kind of music. I think he just went because it was an excuse to hang out, and I think it was only like a tenner for the tickets. I just looked at him halfway through and was looking at it, was like, this is the weirdest thing you've ever done, isn't it? He's like, yeah.
Brilliant.
And it was quite a weird gig. It was all right.
But he probably enjoyed it. Did he find out that there's lots of songs that he thought were really good?
Well, I don't know.
Just saw these guys with beards singing about rabbit, rabbit, rabbit and going, this is bonkers.
Yeah. You know, funnily enough, that's the one of their most well-known songs that I really don't like.
Yeah. Well, it's the one that everybody knows, isn't it? And I can see why people maybe miss out some of their better stuff.
So, to throw it back at you, why do you like Chas and Dave?
Yeah, well, it doesn't quite work the other way around, does it? I think, to be honest, I've answered that just because they've got good songs along with Rabbit as well, and really interesting history.
So the song that was sampled on the Eminem track, it's by Labi Siffre. It's called "I Got the." So they've used that same sort of ellipsis thing, like that. I got the, and my name is. But that's a really great song, that Labi Siffre song. Check it out. It's really cool.
I will. Yeah.
Nice one. So you want another one as well?
Okay, all right. Go for number 4.
I know we spoke about the teenage superstars earlier on. Now, I've just got the word teenage influences here, but what I was meaning was artists that maybe specifically influenced you in your teenage years that you probably wouldn't listen to now. Like it was all about just being there at that time.
Oh, yeah.
For you.
Good one. Do you know what? I think I do listen to them all. I can't think of one right now that I wouldn't listen to now or I don't listen to, but I do come back to them. Right, so 13 plus, that's when I discovered punk rock. So Stiff Little Fingers, The Clash, The Damned, you know, and I still like, especially The Damned and The Clash. Still like them a lot, still come back to them, listen to them, went to see The Damned. Interviewed Dave Vanian, actually, for my radio thing a few years ago. That's another story. Who do I not listen to now, though?
You can still listen to them, but they're maybe just, they had such an impact on you then that it's not the same relationship.
I know what you mean. Yeah, well, okay. I'd maybe say a teenager, maybe Stiff Little Fingers. I listened to them a lot then. Rarely listen to them now. There's 1 or 2 records I do put on when I just want that kind of rush of energy that I got at the time. That'd be one. I'd say, here's another one that's better, the Sex Pistols. I virtually never listen to the Sex Pistols now. Yet I really loved them when I was about 13. very rarely put on a Sex Pistols. Like God Save the Queen's maybe the only record I'll put on now because I love that intro. But I wouldn't really listen to the Sex Pistols now because there's something a bit annoying about them. Johnny Rotten and the production on the record, there was better bands around and stuff, you know. They had some dodgy imagery and there's things about them that haven't stood the test of time, I think. So yeah, I think the Sex Pistols is maybe my best answer to that one. Because everything else I probably still listen to. Yeah, good question. What about you?
Yeah. I guess like you probably still dip into some things as well, but they don't quite have the same meaning as they maybe did back then. But I would say really around that time, like around that sort of 2000, 2001, I think the first one was Strokes came along.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember at that age, that was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. That's like really different. And it's actually exciting and it sounds like they're a band playing.
Yeah, I remember it being really quite exciting when the Strokes came out. I really liked them, yeah.
There was almost like a little development. It started with the Strokes. And I remember when Franz Ferdinand came out as well, that Take Me Out, because they were Scottish as well. And it looked pretty cool as well. Like the videos were really good.
Yeah.
And then I guess when I was 18, the Arctic Monkeys' first album came out, and that was pretty much made for an 18-year-old at that moment in time. Yeah. That's probably one that I preferred their second album, actually, that came out not so long after. But at the time, the first album was the big album of the decade, really. It was the one, but yeah, it doesn't quite connect in the same way anymore.
What about the later, like third and fourth? What's the one with Cornerstone? I love that. Cornerstone, that's a great record.
There was one or two tunes, but I think I would probably still listen to the second album if I had to choose one.
I think the 2000s was a great period. The first 10 years of the 2000s, so many great bands.
Probably the answer to the question I was posing, probably Arctic Monkeys is probably the best answer I can give as well.
Yeah. So you wouldn't listen to them virtually at all now?
There's one song I really like, particularly on their second album, whereas at the time I probably listened to it quite a lot when I was at like hanging out with my pals and everything, and we were going to the nightclubs where the people were wearing the knackered Converse and the tracky bottoms tucked in socks that they were singing about.
You're just giving me some fashion ideas, and I need to revamp my wardrobe. So yeah, cheers.
To be honest, I think I'd still do, apart from the tucking them in the socks, I definitely still wear trackies and wear knackered Converse quite a lot. So I've not grown out of it yet.
I was going to say, like, obviously, we're going to wrap this up, but I mean, are we going to talk about the next episode? Are we going to have a guest on the next episode, do you think? I think we discussed maybe just what kind of guests we're going to have, and I think we talked about not necessarily having famous guests, but having interesting guests.
Yeah, maybe the people that you haven't been seen interviewed very often. Yeah. So people that are involved in music that aren't necessarily under the spotlights.
That's right, that people might not have heard of, but have really good stories and things like that. Will we keep it a secret until we can actually announce it? Until we've actually asked them as well officially?
Yeah, we could just force them into doing it now. Say their name.
There might be better approaches.
Well, we'll see you all next time.
Yeah, been a good one. Enjoyed it. Look forward to next time.
I'm off to listen to Chaz and Dave.
I'm going to listen to Sex Pistols.